Despite the fresh paint on its exterior, the notorious Matrosskaya Tishina prison in Moscow looks ominous. This is where Russia's most prominent prisoner, Mikhail Khordokovsky, is jailed, and where corporate lawyer Sergei Magnitsky died in 2009. The circumstances of his death were regarded as a scandal in Russia and abroad. As a consequence, the Kremlin promised penal reform. I've come to see whether that's actually happening. It took me months to get a permit to film at the prison. The deputy director, Konstantin Andreyko, shows me around. He tells me 1,600 people are held here. Most of them are remand prisoners awaiting trial. Andreyko says the whole gamut of crimes is covered. Theft, armed robbery, white-collar crime, everything. I'm taken to see a cell in the main block. Andreyko is very friendly and clearly making an effort to demonstrate how open he's being about everything. But I have my doubts whether what he's showing me reflects everyday reality here. Human rights organizations repeatedly criticize conditions in Russian prisons. I find myself in a model cell. It's recently been fixed up. It's a 4-person cell, Andreyko explains. It's equipped with a dining table, a food cupboard, a toilet, and hot and cold running water. There's also a fridge, a TV set, and a radio. Somewhere 2 or 3 floors above us, Mikhail Khordokovsky is sitting out his sentence. I inquire whether the former oil magnate is in a cell like the one we've been shown. But Andreyko says he has no idea. He says he can't tell me anything about Khordokovsky. He takes me to another wing of the prison where meals are just being served. Andreyko is enthused about the modernization that's going on. He says there's no comparison with how things used to be. Cells like these would have housed 100 prisoners back in the 1990s, he says. Now the maximum is 16. The inmates turn their backs when I enter the cell. They do not want to be filmed. I learned from Andreyko that the guards treat prisoners better these days, even though they're often dealing with armed robbers and murderers. This sign says special supervision is required. Andreyko explains that this cell houses extreme cases, men at risk of suicide, or others who've tried to escape. The guards must be especially vigilant. I wonder why the prison has such a bad reputation if everything here is run as well as Andreyko makes it out to be. Where are the dehumanizing conditions that rights organizations are so concerned about? And why did a prominent lawyer waiting for his case to be tried die waiting for treatment here? I leave the prison and visit a cemetery where Sergei Magnitsky is buried. He'd launched a complaint about Russian authorities being implicated in tax fraud. Instead of investigating, the police arrested him on charges of colluding in fraud himself. While in detention, Magnitsky fell ill. He was transferred from one prison to another and refused an operation. He died in prison at the age of 37. Magnitsky's mother talks about his final hours, how he was brought to the prison infirmary in Matrosskaya Tishina in critical condition. Natalia Magnitskaya says that instead of treating him, the woman doctor made him sit in the waiting room. There wasn't even a bed, she says. They basically just let him die there. He was handcuffed. There were marks on his wrists. She says she doesn't know what happened to him beforehand. Magnitsky's death still has not been properly investigated. Those believed to be responsible have not been punished. It's common for remand prisoners to be denied treatment, I learn, in order to force confessions from them. Valery Borshev and some other human rights activists come with me when I return to Matrosskaya Tishna prison. Under the law, Borshev and his colleagues have right of access to the prison. But it's soon obvious that prison officials don't want them here. And they especially don't like the fact that I've come along. Borshev tells me it was Magnitsky's death that brought the problem of sick inmates to the public's attention. He says his organization informed human rights officials working for President Dmitry Medvedev, and they informed the president. He decided to look into the matter. Medvedev has since called for a comprehensive reform of the penal system. He's already introduced a law making it possible for remand prisoners who are ill to be released. But I don't see that happening here. Sergei Kalinin has been awaiting trial for 4 years. He's accused of fraud. His spine was severely damaged in an accident. In prison, his condition has deteriorated. He cannot walk or sit down. Kalinin tells me he was unable to wash properly for 2 years. There were no facilities. He only had a washcloth. Thanks to the human rights workers, he's been brought to the infirmary. He says in Russia's prisons, every effort is made to avoid helping prisoners. I find this hard to believe, but the rights activists say they're constantly dealing with such cases. I asked to see more of the prison hospital. I want to find out what the guards and doctors here think about Magnitsky's death. According to the head of the infirmary, Magnitsky died of acute heart failure. He says there were no prior indications of the condition and he died suddenly. He concludes, such things happen, unfortunately. Human rights activist Valery Borshev interrupts and lays the blame for Magnitsky's death on the investigators from the state prosecutor's office. A committee of inquiry found they had prevented Magnitsky from getting essential medical examinations. This is a shock. There had been a great deal of publicity about the death of the corporate lawyer in the prison infirmary. Yet here in Matrosskaya Tishna, it seems no one is particularly bothered about what happened. Konstantin Andreyko, the deputy director of Matrosskaya Tishna, says everyone always blames the prison. But he says we're not the only ones who are responsible. My visit is over. Improvement is taking place here, and some of my concerns have been addressed. But old Soviet Union attitudes still prevail. A citizen is someone to be ordered around. Anyone under suspicion is treated like a criminal. And human life, it seems, is not worth very much.